Beyond the Pueblo sphere of influence and their surrounding cloud of Apache enemies that were always kind of skirting around the edges, there was other groups that the Spanish encountered in what would later become Texas. The Wichita. Wichitas came out of the Arkansas River Valley and even further north, up in the Platte River Valley. And their migrations led them into the Red River Valley. They will become important people to the Spanish in the coming years. One of the things that the Spanish noted about the Wichitas was their great grass huts, these beehive huts. These were probably the later descendants of the Tewa people that Coronado had encountered. Whatever the case, the Wichitas are now Texans at this point, at least far north Texans, and they will play a big role in Texas history. In central Texas, there's a group of loosely related bands known as the Tonkawa. And the Tonkawa people are rather mysterious in terms of their origin because we're relying on Spanish reports, and these Spanish reports are incomplete and oftentimes indifferent. But they talk about the Grand Rancheria, and the Grand Rancheria is oftentimes looked at as perhaps referring to the Tonkawa. Tonkawa being very dispersed bands and small populations, but living in the hill country and in the Blackland Prairie of central Texas. On the coast, you have some Karankahua Indians. The Karankahua Indians seem to have been related in some way to the Carib Indians that lived in the eastern Caribbean. They tend to be primitive, spend a lot of time eating seafood, as you can imagine, and living in a very inhospitable climate, which is the Texas coast. Observers talked about their tattooing, their body piercings. One of the things that they did was use stingray barbs to pierce, yikes, but that would certainly make an impression on you if you met one of them in the nude. These guys were extraordinarily primitive, according to the Spanish that encountered them, and poor. South of the Texas coast and into the South Texas scrub country, that was the land of the Tecan Indians. Once again, these are people that are living right on the cusp of survival. One of the practices that they have is best described as a second harvest, where they would glean any sort of grain that they could find to make some sort of crude bread to supplement their meager rations. But this also included pulling undigested seeds from animal dung. In East Texas, the remnants or the successor, survivors, refugees of the great Mississippian culture is the Caddo Confederacy. The Hassani is the principal part of that confederacy. These people, like their Mississippian culture forebears, built mounds, temple mounds, and lived in villages, but they were also fairly semi-nomadic. Each of these groups, small in population, very close to the margin between survival and death, a long way from flourishing, spent a lot of time interacting with each other in a loose trade network, but increasingly this jostling is going to displace and going to rearrange this human geography. The Spanish have unleashed powerful forces that completely rearranged this human landscape.